Hey guys, welcome to MadeByBritSie episode number 9. I'm Brittany and this is my podcast about the glorious world of knitting and sewing. And I'm a crazy person today. So I'm coming to you from Boston, Massachusetts, where I live with my husband Dave and our cat Slayer. And you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry at MadeByBritSie. So I would like to point out my friend Rachel from the Knit and Knitabilities podcast. She was so kind and gifted me the Weekender sweater by Andrea Mowry. She gifted me the pattern for my birthday. That was a couple of weeks ago. But I guess when she went on Ravelry to look at my queue or my wish list, she was like, "Girl, you never get on there." And I was like, well, I actually do, but I use the app on my phone. So I don't know if that translates to the actual website. I thought it was all connected, but maybe not. So I always say you can find me on Ravelry at MadeByBritSie, but I'm actually not very active on there. So anyway, but saying that, I would like to mention that Ravelry does have an app called Ravit, Ravit, and it's awesome. It's just so easy to use and organize your patterns. I mean, honestly, I haven't used the actual website in so long. They may have made updates to that made it a little easier to use, but the Ravit app has just been my go-to for now. It's just so easy to pull up patterns and I don't print patterns out. I use them on my phone, so it's always with me, and I always have the pattern handy. I just wanted to mention that. So anyway, hi, and welcome back if you're a returning viewer, and if you're a new viewer, thank you so much for joining me as I ramble on about everything I've been working on. Let me start off today with my finished objects, because last podcast I did promise you a finished object and I followed through. So living, or I guess not really living anymore because it's finished, in my Fringe Supply filled bag. I think the last podcast I called this the porter bag, and that's wrong. It's the filled bag. This was a birthday gift from my husband and my mother-in-law a couple of weeks ago, and I'm in love. So yeah, the first finished object I have, or I guess actually really the only finished object I have, is the Harlow hat by Andrea Mowry. So when I showed this on the last podcast, I think I was a few inches in, but I could tell it was going to knit up quickly, and it did. And I love this hat. I'm going to take some pictures. I'm not going to put it on because I'm going to look like a big dork, but I will take some pictures so you can see how awesome this fits. So I think I mentioned last time that I'm not... while hats are a necessity here in Boston, I'm not a huge fan of wearing them because I feel like I don't look great in them, which is silly because it's freezing here in the winter. You have to wear a hat. I mean, there's just no way around it. But this is actually one of the first hats I found that I really like the way it fits. And I think because it's not super tight, it's got a little bit of a slouch, but not too much. And I'm not sure what it is about this hat that makes it more flattering than other ones that I've tried, but I really love it. So it's just basically a simple brioche hat, two-color brioche hat. So it's really cool. It's reversible. So I had picked this gray as my contrasting color and the pink as my main color, but I actually think technically this is the inside out, but I think I prefer it this way with the gray standing out more. Oh, I need to weave my ends in a little better. So this is the reverse, and this was meant to be the main with this hot pink on the outside. So let me go over the yarn. The main color is this hot pink, which is a Madeline Tosh. This is right here. This is her Twist Light, and this is a 75% merino wool, 25% nylon, and this is the Harlow colorway. Yeah, I picked this up a while back, probably a year or so ago, if not longer, and didn't really have a project in mind, but it's been sitting in my stash, and I really like it, and I'm glad I used it for this hat because I think it's just the right amount of pink. I'm not one to wear a whole lot of pink, so it's just the right amount that I'll actually wear this. The gray is also Madeline Tosh. Oh, I actually have a second skein that I haven't used yet. So this is Madeline Tosh Mo Light, and this is 80% merino wool and 20% kid mohair. So this is just a really cool, this is a single ply, which I really have been loving lately. I ordered a bunch of this in her Black Friday sale last year, not really having any projects in mind. I just, and I had never used the Tosh Mo Light, so I wanted to try it, and I really love, I want to say I got like 4 or 5 different colorways, and I love all of them. As you know, I'm just a huge Madeline Tosh fan. She can do no wrong in my book. Yeah, so this is like, I love this because it's pretty much a neutral in my book. So, but it's not super boring. It's got like black speckles. It's a light gray base with black speckles, which I just think is really cool. And I think it made the perfect contrasting color for this hat because I didn't want anything with too high of a contrast, because of course I looked through the project pages, and just the ones that I was drawn to were ones that didn't have high contrast between the two colors. So I'm glad I went with this. So I did use, you were supposed to knit the first couple of inches on size 2 needles, and for some reason I just skipped over that part. Not really sure why. I think I was just excited to get started and didn't read the directions thoroughly enough. So I just cast on size 3 needles and knit the whole thing in size 3 needles, which is fine. It actually fits really well. I think I'm definitely going to knit another one. Actually, I'm knitting another one for my husband right now, and I did start on the size 2 needles, but I think when I knit another one for myself, I will start off on the size 2 just to get a little tighter fit around the head, because this is, I wouldn't want it to be any looser. I'll just say that. Like I don't think I'm going to block this just because I don't want it to grow at all, and I'm happy with the fit. So yeah, the only problems I ran into with the pattern were my own fault because, again, I did not read the pattern thoroughly enough. So when I got to where I needed to start making the decreases, I did the first decrease round, and then it said repeat rounds 2A and 2B. But so the decrease round that I started on was the one that was indicated for the size adult small, and then in my mind I just thought it was saying to repeat that round 2 more times, but it was really referring to a different round that I hadn't done yet. So anyway, I cannot tell you how many times because I kept trying to repeat it and I wasn't getting like even repeats, and I thought I was counting wrong, and I ripped it back several times, and ripping back and trying to get brioche stitches back on the needles. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it's not something that you want to do if you don't have to. So then I went and looked at the pattern and checked for errata to see if like someone had caught a mistake and corrected it, but nope, that was not the case. It was all me just not reading the pattern. So once I figured that out, it was smooth sailing, and really just a quick knit. And I actually wore this yesterday. It's been pretty chilly here in Boston the past few days, like in the 50s and 60s during the day, and windy. So this really came in handy. And I was so excited to be able to wear it. Anyway, so enough about that. My next finished object, I kind of feel like I'm cheating by showing you guys this because it's not anything that I just finished. This is actually one of the first shawls that I knit, but since it has been a little chilly here lately, I took down like my winter items that I had in storage, and I've actually gotten a lot of wear out of this. This was one of the first shawls that I knit, maybe actually the first shawl that I knit. So sad story, I knit this and another similar one around the same time, and the other one that I knit, I'll post a picture if I can find it, just so we can give it like a proper morning. So I wore it one time, and literally on the walk home, I think I ended up getting hot, and I had a bunch of layers on, and I started taking off my layers, and I'm sure I had like my purse and my coat, and like I was carrying a bunch of stuff, and that must have just like fell on the sidewalk, and I guess someone snagged it because I did go back. This was a couple years ago. I did go back and look for it immediately. It was not there. I even walked that same route for like the next couple of weeks, hoping that someone might have picked it up and hung it on the fence, because they do that sometimes. But I'm hoping that someone found it and realized that it was like a hand knit, and I had even actually dyed the yarn too, so it was hand dyed by me, knit by me. I'm really just hope that someone found it and gave it a good home and really enjoys it as much as I got to for the one day that I wore it. So anyway, sorry for that little side story. So yeah, getting back to this one, the one that I actually still have. Yeah, I just wanted to show this to you guys because it is a pretty small shawl. I'll try to snap pictures of this too, because I've never taken pictures of this, but lately I've been on a big shawl kick because I'm like, oh, small shawls are kind of impractical, but I actually have been getting quite a bit of use out of this because it is small, and it's perfect for those days when you don't want anything, when you don't need a giant shawl. You just, I wear this kerchief style, and it's just enough to give you like warmth around the neck, and it's knit up quickly, and I feel like it was super easy beginner shawl pattern with just a little bit of lace. The pattern is Swedish Spring by Maria Monska. If I'm saying that right, I'll put her info at the bottom of the screen. And this was also a big deal for me because this was my first time knitting with Woolenvine yarn. So I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you guys watch the Yarngasm podcast with Kristen. And I'm sure you're all too familiar with her yarn. She's an indie dyer, and it's usually pretty hard to get a hold of her yarn. Her updates go pretty quickly. So this was some of her first yarn that I got my hands on. And this is Not a Creature with Stirring on her footsie base. I want to say that this was either like a special Christmas colorway that she did, or maybe one of her like strange brews. I think back then they weren't called strange brews. It was something else. But yeah, so I don't know if she'll bring it back for this Christmas. But I really love this color, and I think she has another one called Dirty on Purpose that's pretty similar to this. I think it might have more gray. This is kind of like a gray base with green and kind of gold speckles. Yeah, so it's really cool. And again, the shawl is just a super small, quick pattern. But I'm really loving it. I don't know that I'll knit another one anytime soon, but I'm happy with this one, and I think I'll get a lot of wear out of it this fall. Yeah, so that is it for finished objects. I do have a couple of works in progress. My first one, like I had mentioned a little bit ago, is another Harlow hat, which is the pattern by Andrea Mowry. And this one I'm knitting for my husband. I showed this last week, and I'm almost ashamed to even show you this now because last week I didn't even, I had like maybe 2 rounds and I just started it. And honestly, I don't have much more. So this is what I have so far. I am knitting this on, well, starting out on size 2 needles, and these are just some clover, like I think they're bamboo needles that I had. And I'm not really enjoying this one as much as mine because I had mentioned this in the last podcast. So I'm knitting this out of Brooklyn Tweed Loft. Yeah, so this is my first time knitting with Brooklyn Tweed, and I have mixed feelings about it. I have a feeling I'm really going to like it once I'm done, or maybe once I get it off these toothpick-like needles, I will enjoy it more. But right now, I'm just, yeah, it's not my favorite thing. I haven't been drawn to work on this. So this is actually the same 2 colors that Andrea Mowry showed in like the sample hat for the pattern. I think I also got this wrong on the last podcast, but the darker color is cast iron and the lighter one is soot. I think last time I said this was charcoal, and that is wrong. It's cast iron. So yeah, I'm sure you guys have seen and heard plenty about the Brooklyn Tweed Loft, and I'll let you know my final thoughts on this once it's done. But yeah, right now mixed feelings, and my husband is excited about it. These are totally his colors, so the gray and the black, and I think he's really gonna get a lot of wear out of this winter because he bikes to work. So this will go really good under his helmet, keep him nice and warm. So my next work in progress is also something that I think I had just a teensy bit done on the last podcast. And this is the Vertices Unite shawl by Stephen West. And it's actually essentially off the needles right now because I just finished the first section. And see, here it is. So yeah, I'm really loving this pattern so far. So I'll put a picture up so you know what I'm talking about. But it's really cool because it's kind of like a color blocked shawl, and which I like because sometimes I have a problem combining yarns. Like I have a lot of yarns that I kind of want them to shine or be the center of attention in a project, if that makes sense. So I have a hard time combining yarns that I really love with other yarns because it's like I'm like afraid they won't get the spotlight that they deserve. So anyway, with this shawl it's really cool because each one is kind of blocked off, and there are a couple sections that are striped, which this was one that should have been striped, but I decided just to do it not striped because I really liked how this was knitting up, and it's almost a little stripy to me, so I just really liked that effect, and I just love this yarn. This is the right here. So this is again Madeline Tosh Molite. I told you guys I went crazy, and I'm sure she'll have another Black Friday sale this year, and I plan on going crazy again. So this is the Patched Indigo colorway. Just a really pretty, what really does look like kind of like old blue jeans, which I love. So you've got like the darker blues and then lighter blues, and in some areas there's almost like a hint of purple. Yeah, so I just really, really love this. And as you can see, it knits up beautifully. And yeah, so like I was saying about this shawl, I think it's cool because it kind of gives each yarn, if you have a bunch of yarns that you really want to showcase, it gives each yarn its little area to shine. And I was undecided when I started if I was going to do the small or large size. So the pattern starts out with you knitting the largest section first, which I also really like because I feel like after this it's just gonna fly. And this actually was way more knitting for the first section than I thought. I used almost a whole skein of this yarn. I have just a tiny bit left. have that much left from the first skein. So it used almost a full skein of yarn just for that first section, but it honestly didn't even feel like it. I mean, it has you increasing every fourth row for the first half. So it did kind of get a little slow going towards the end of the first half of this piece, if that makes sense. So I think first it has you, if you're knitting the small size, it has you knit to 60 stitches, like keep increasing until you reach 60 stitches. And when I got to 60, I was like, it's okay, but I think I do want to do the larger size. So I went ahead and kept increasing until I got to 90. And then when you start decreasing, as you kind of taper back down, so this side, you start decreasing every other row. So you're decreasing twice as fast. So it goes twice as quick once you start decreasing. So I really like that when it's little tricks like that make patterns go faster for me. So the next section that he has you start on is a stripe section, and I think I'm gonna stripe these two. So again, this is the Madeline Tosh Molite in the Smokestack Optic, and this is that color that I had used, the contrasting color that I had used in the Harlow hat. So yeah, I really like how those two go together, and I think with this blue, I just really like that combination. So I showed kind of the whole color palette that I put together on the last podcast, and that may change as I continue knitting this, but this was also another color that I had chosen. So I really like how all those go together, but I think I'm going to save this one for one of the smaller sections, just because I want it to be mostly neutral, which I consider this neutral. I don't know if everyone considers that neutral, but in my mind, this is pretty neutral. But I'll use this as a little pop of color. I'll talk more about this yarn once if I end up adding it into the shawl, because who knows, it may not make it in there. So I'm super excited about this. I can't wait to have it finished. I think it's going to go pretty quickly. And honestly, I already have plans to start a second one of these, just because, like I said, I have a lot of yarns that I want to kind of give them their own space. So for my last work in progress, this is also something I showed on the last couple of podcasts. And this is the Alanis top by Elizabeth Smith. I'm storing this in a project bag that I made. I actually got this fabric from Walmart, and I really love it. This project bag makes me so happy. It's just a simple zip up, nothing fancy, and it's one of the first ones I made. So I don't know, I still love it. And it's big enough to hold bigger projects. So yeah, this is the Alanis top by Elizabeth Smith, and it's just a boxy, sort of oversized, kind of not really cropped shirt. But I'm knitting this out of Knit Picks Wool of the Andes Tweed in their Autumn Heather colorway. I feel like it's not focusing. So this is 80% Peruvian Highland wool and 20% Donegal tweed. You guys have probably used or definitely heard of Knit Picks Wool of the Andes Tweed before. So far I'm really liking this. I think I mentioned this last time, it's not knitting up as quickly as I thought, but it's not bad. Honestly, I've been putting most of my time into the Vertices Unite shawl, so this hasn't gotten a lot of love. But I've put a couple of inches on it. So this is the front, and I don't know if you can see, but it has little kind of sections that alternate between garter and purl stitches to give you a really cool striped effect going up. And then you also have a little pocket that's purled on the front, and then it'll have a contrasting lining to make it pop a little. So I don't have a whole lot to say about this right now, because again, I haven't put a whole lot a whole lot of more time into it at this point, but I think now that I've finished the main chunk on the Vertices Unite shawl, I think this will definitely be getting more attention because I do want to have this finished for fall. I think it's going to be a great layering piece. Yeah, so I am knitting this on my Addy Click size, US size 6 needles. So yeah, nothing. I've talked about these needles before. This was my first interchangeable set and I really like them. Okay, so that's it for my works in progress. I do have like so many things that I want to cast on right now, even though I feel like I've just gone crazy with casting on things. So like I mentioned, Rachel from the Knit and Knitabilities podcast, which if you haven't checked her out, you should, because she's just adorable and awesome. She gifted me the Weekender pattern by Andrea Mowry. So I really want to cast that on. That'll probably be the next thing I cast on. I have some more Knit Picks Wool of the Andes tweed, and I forget what the colorway is, but it's like a lighter, I've shown it before. It's just like a lighter kind of cream color tweedy yarn, and I think it would really be cool for a weekender. I want to cast on another Harlow hat. Oh, so there's someone I follow on Instagram. I can't remember her name right now, but she's working on the Marled Magic sweater by Stephen West. And her color choices, like the palette that she's been using, is just so beautiful, and it's really inspiring me to cast on a Marled Magic sweater because I have a lot of yarns too that I don't like them so much on their own anymore, or I've already used them on projects, and I kind of want to mix it up a little bit, like kind of give them new life by mixing them with something else. So Stephen West uses the marling technique a lot in his patterns. So you're basically using 2 different fingering weight yarns, or I guess any weight yarns, whatever the pattern calls for, and knitting with them together. So it gives it kind of a marled effect, which is really cool because it's almost like you can create new colors just by combining 2 yarns, and it's different than striping them. It gives it, a different effect because the yarns are essentially kind of twisted together, which is really cool. So you can do lots of like fading and just really cool techniques that I don't know, I feel like bring new life to yarns that you may not love anymore. So my hair is being crazy. Yeah, so a while back I had purchased joined the Marled Magic knit along, the mystery knit along that he did maybe 2 years ago, and I never finished it. I actually didn't even get that far into it because I don't know, I could not come up with a color palette that I was in love with. Or actually I did come up with a palette that I was in love with, but once I started marling the yarns together, I was just like, I was not in love. So I'm hoping that the Marled Magic sweater will turn out a little differently. And it's a really cool, like kind of oversized baggy sweater. And yeah, so I'm so excited about that. As far as sewing goes, I don't have anything new to show you guys because my aunt and her wife have been in town for the past like 4 or 5 days. They're staying with us. So normally I have my cutting mat set up in the living room, and they've been staying in there. We have an air mattress set up for them in there. So I kind of took down my sewing area just to give them some more room. So yeah, I haven't really been working on anything sewing wise. And yeah, we've been running around the city and I haven't had time to do much sewing anyway. I brought my knitting with me and I was able to get some of that done. But when family's here, you kind of want to devote most of your time to them. And I just want to say a big thanks to them as well, because I think they both watch the podcast. They're probably my biggest fans, even though they do not knit. And yeah, so I really appreciate their support, and it's been really nice to have them here. They're the first of my family that's come to visit our new place since we moved back. So yeah, it's just exciting to show them around, and they've had a great time. So not much else going on here. Yeah, just looking forward to fall, looking forward to all the fall knitting and fall festivities that are going to happen soon. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. And I always forget to say this. I think this is the first time that I've remembered to say this, but if you enjoy this podcast, please like and subscribe and comment, say hi, or tell me where you're from. I love to know where everyone's from. Yeah, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.